the Economist Corporate Network in Hong Kong, and we just finished our CEO luncheon on retail in China, and specifically e-commerce and online retailing in China. And I'm here with Carrie from PricewaterhouseCoopers, Jiang from AT&T, and Cathy Jiang from PricewaterhouseCoopers as well. And I'm going to start with you, Carrie. You just released a survey on multi-channel retailing in China, where you discussed the different online retail behavior of Chinese consumers. Would you mind telling us just the key findings from this study, and specifically what the differences are between Chinese online consumers and apart from the other regions in the world, and as well within China, within the different tier 1, 2, and 3 cities?
Thank you, Judith. We're very excited with these findings, and these findings actually cover over 900 respondents, online interviews with in 27 cities across China, in Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 cities. So we believe that it's pretty representative of what's going on the online retail space right now. And the interesting findings, which actually came as a bit of a surprise to us, are quite a few ones. The first one is that we realized that while online retailing is a rather recent event, the consumers actually have been responding very quickly and enthusiastically. And what we see is that over 70% of these respondents have been shopping at least once a week or even more, compared to, let's say, 40% in the US and the UK. So this is quite a bit of a difference. But not only so, we noticed that they actually shop not through the identification of the stores, not through search engines as most of the developed countries do, but actually through the friend's recommendation. So I think this is a very important implication to the retailers and the .com companies, because social media will definitely play a major role in this part of the world. The other one is, while we have always been hearing that a lot of Chinese consumers like to shop online for clothing and consumer electronics items, we actually gave 11 categories for the respondents to complete. And to our surprise, actually, they actually have the appetite for all the categories, and the top few ones is the clothing and shoes, and then the second one is the movie and books, and then we have the electricals, and then the health and beauty, and then the computers, and including toys and grocery, DIY furnitures. The last one is jewelry and watch. But even for the last one, 47% of the respondents are buying online compared to 65%. So this is very important to be aware of.
You also mentioned that the Chinese consumers, or more than other regions, are going directly to the brands, right, instead of going to a search engine or so. What impact does this have for firms going into China and trying to sell online? What do they need to think about?
Very much so, because usually, actually, in the other countries, there is a more affiliation to retailers' brand. Right now in China, it's not much of a differentiation, and there is a great propensity to buy from brands. So for consumer companies, branded consumer companies, here are the opportunities, and this is the time where you can go direct, but obviously you have to manage the channel conflict, because you are also selling these products to the retailers in China. But this is a major opportunity for the branded companies. Yes.
Thank you. So let me turn to you, Johnny. We talked about the IT infrastructure and the importance of the IT infrastructure in the when going online and for the e-commerce industry. How does the infrastructure in China compare to other regions in the world?
Well, I think first of all, it's important that to understand how it works in China. China market is highly regulated from telecom point of view. So all the service providers or other company in the ecosystem need to work with either China Telecom, China Unicom, or China Mobile to provide the services. So in our cases, we actually we also need to finalize that or our own joint venture in China. So that's one thing. The other thing, in terms of e-commerce, I think we also need to make sure we have the good payment system to support all the transactions. So that's also critical. And when we talk about online payment, security becomes very critical. Right? So the security solution and make sure that the data would not be hacked by people, by the bad guys, basically, right? And compliance is another thing, right? We talk about PCI compliance. We talk about how do we protect consumer data and make sure that that will not be violating the regulation of China's government. So it's important for the people, for the retail company to set their own website or data center in China, such that they would not be disclosing the information or divulging the information outside China. And the other, I would say, also important point is customer experience. How could we improve that experience for the consumer using internet or when they do online shopping, right? So by looking at the infrastructure in China, we ensure the interconnect between different carriers. Particularly, we are talking about huge geographic distribution of our customers in different areas. Carrie talked about tier 2 city, tier 3 city, or even tier 4 cities, right? How do we get a good infrastructure to get people together? So we need to have the solution to help people to enhance their customer experience while they serving on the web or doing transactions on the web. So there are various solutions, obviously, to help people address those issues. But as I said, I think the key concern really is the security, is compliance, is the regulation, and in the meantime, how to enhance the customer experience.
And how far do you think China has come in this field in terms of the infrastructure? Is it put in place already, or is it still developing?
Well, in fact, I think it has been catching up pretty quickly in China, and more driven by the consumer behavior. And as Carrie just mentioned in the survey that was done by PwC, there are more and more people using online shopping. So with the demand being the big driver, I think it's more mature.
Now, Cathy, we also discussed the tax regime, and we know that in the US and in other countries the governments want to tax online commerce. And do you think this will happen in China as well?
Right, I think the answer is yes. Although China knows specific rules for e-commerce, but China Tax Authority believe so far may not necessarily need to have a specific one, because the current regulations or tax framework has already catered this. So the question is whether they are going to impose very strengthened administration or not. I think there are three aspects from tax point of view for e-commerce. One is from income tax perspective, China is very invoice-driven, registration-driven country from tax point of view. So they may need to put a strong infrastructure in place. For example, the electronic identity for the taxpayers and the electronic invoice for the taxpayers in place to impose efficiently and effectively for tax administration point of view. And second, I think they are thinking no need to adjust the rate, but they may give you some sort of income tax perspective financial subsidies. You may apply financial subsidies from some locations like Shanghai. It's black and white, it's not gray area. So from income tax rate point of view, you may not have any incentive, but from local financing subsidies point of view, you may get some from government's pocket. And the other parts may be turnover tax. That's very hot topics in China, because the business tax is going to merge with the value-added tax. And for e-commerce, the rate is going to be 6. I think it's not the changing of the rate. That's not the most important part. The most important part is your service provider, like AT&T, provide your IT solution, will be part of the value chain. So the fee you pay them previously cannot be deducted credit from your VAT sales, but now it becomes the creditable item. That may reduce your cost overall. And the other aspect is consumption tax, which in some country calls luxury goods tax, right?
Yeah.
That will be subject to change as well, but more focus on the classification of the items rather than the rate. But I think the rate is under discussion, but the first step, they need to identify the item first and think about the rate. I think the overall trend is getting done. So to cater the China market, and more open-minded from China government point of view to the luxury goods. So those are the three areas, maybe linked very closely to the e-commerce. Okay. But I think, doing the retail business in China, I think some areas we may need to pay attention to. It's good news. We have challenges. We have opportunities. I'll put the opportunities up front first. Opportunity is you may need to pay attention on your IP, where you put your IP. That may, really does matter to your overall group level effective tax rate. For example, if you put your IP includes know-how of the system and also the trademark. If you put that IP in the right place with good treaty clauses with China, then the withholding tax will be lower, and the effective average could be as low as 12%. Think about it, you only pay 12% rate, but you get deduction about 25 in China. That's immediately, you save your tax. The other point is you may need to manage the structure and put your holding. A lot of, retail business, luxury goods may not have their own store in China. They use third-party dealers in China. But they are thinking how to go into and set up their subsidiaries. When you set up, you need to consider how to put your holding company. It's also a treaty company. It should be a treaty company to manage the withholding tax on dividend. That's really has implication, to your return. And the last point is choose a right location. Yeah. Previously, people thinking after year 2008, location shopping is not necessary in China because more industry-oriented rather than location-oriented. But you have seen Shenzhen, Qianhai, you have seen Zhuhai, Hanqing, and Hainan. Yeah. Those are the places actually really provide local preferential treatment. Okay. So I think that's another point. The last point is we may need to think about to manage the last chance benefit for the advanced services, industry, to qualify advanced services industry. Right. Because e-commerce now classified as a business processing oriented industry, which actually fall into the big business tax exemption and also income tax 15%, which will be closed in year 2013. So catch the last chance.
Okay, thank you.
Change of tax regime actually create more job for PwC.
Yes. We are very excited.
Well, thanks to all of you. It was a very interesting discussion today. And I'm Frida Wallin with the Economist Corporate Network in Hong Kong, and thank you for joining us.